Welcome to the Writer's Journey podcast. I'm Michael Laran, a science fiction and fantasy author on a journey to go from nobody to bestseller, and I'm documenting every step of the way. Tune in every week as I pull back the curtain on my writing life and how I'm building a writing career while working a full-time job, raising a family, and attending law school classes in the evenings. You can find show notes for this week's episode, a free starter library of my fiction, and much more at michaellaran.com. Hello and welcome to episode 96. 96 is a good number, and I was looking at my calendar and I realized that a month from this week I will be celebrating the big 100. So I'm going to try to figure out what I'm going to do. I want to do something fun for that episode. So that'll be a really big milestone. 2 years of the writer's journey. Well, it won't be quite 2 years, but it'll be 100 episodes. So anyway, this week I wanted to cover some personal and writing updates, and then I wanted to talk about a change that's coming to the show. Very minor, but I think it will improve your enjoyment and your use of how I do these podcasts. And then I'm going to talk about some other topics. So in personal news, things are going good. Studying, getting ready for my next class that's coming up. Still have not gotten my law grade back from my last class, so I'm desperately awaiting that to see what my grade was. And I'm still working on Cold Hard Magic. It's still going just about as slow as I said it was going last week. So unfortunately, I don't have anything to update you on there. But I am going to be participating in a pretty cool challenge that's coming up here next week. Brian Cohen of the Sell More Books Show. He's doing a Amazon Ads challenge, and I think it's like a 7-day challenge to help you write better Amazon ads, and I'm trying to improve my Amazon ads this year, and so I'm going to be participating in that this coming Monday. I think it's January 13th. So if you've not heard of that, it's a free challenge, so I don't know what it's going to entail, but I'll be participating in it, and you can get your challenge. I think it's at I'll get a link and I'll put it in the show notes. I don't want to say something and it be wrong. So you can grab your link in the show notes as you're listening to this and click that and follow it. And if you want to improve your Amazon ads in 2020 to help you sell more books, I think that Brian Cohen is a great resource. I've actually met Brian in person. I met him in Vegas last year, and he was really cool. Had a beer with him. And if there's anyone who can teach ads and things like that, it's definitely Brian. So minor changes to the show format. All right, so what I'm going to be doing, and I didn't realize that you could do this, so I'm going to be curious to see if it works for everybody, is I'm going to start putting timestamps in my shows. So the first couple of minutes of every show is always like personal news and updates, right? Then I start talking about other topics. And so I thought, how can I make sure that people are getting value from the show? And then if I want to refer back to an old episode of The Writer's Journey, I want people to be able to just instantly be able to go to where they want to go. So like in the episode where I was talking about AI, I want people to listen to the whole episode, but they're probably not going to be there listening to the updates. They're going to be there listening for the AI piece. So I'm going to start putting timestamps in the show notes. So hopefully, depending on the podcast player that you listen to the show in, you should be able to just tap on them and they'll be able to take you to where it is. It'll be able to take you to the exact audio where it begins. Some podcast players will let you do that, like Spotify, I think, can let you do that. If it doesn't, at least that'll give you a reference of where the particular topic that I'm talking about will start for the show. So I hope that improves your enjoyment of the show. And for those of you who are going back and listening to old episodes in the future, my future listeners who are going to be listening to this episode you'll have some more reference to help you jump around in the episodes to get what you want out of them. So that's going to be the minor change to the show format. Again, nothing major, but it's a new year. And so always thinking about how to improve the show so that people keep listening and keep getting value out of it. So, all right. So what I want to talk about now is how I'm prepping for the next busy season for me. So the spring semester is usually not as busy for me. And I say that now I'm going to regret it. But typically, I'm in the process of, I'm in law school. So this is my final year of law school. I am working a full-time job, and I've got a 5-year-old who's going to be going into kindergarten. And so I'm pretty busy. I've got a lot of things going on. And so how do I prep for class? Because once class starts, things kind of get crazy. So what I'm doing in prepping for the semester is what I always look at is what is the worst part of the semester for me. And historically, it's always that third month, right? So in the fall, it's October. Octobers are usually horrible for me. And in spring, it's usually March. So March is usually the busy month. So what I'm focusing on now is how do I take the teeth out of March so that March can be stress-free, it can be relaxing, because usually with class, that's when the assignments really start ramping up. It's when you hit midterms, it's when you hit spring break. At work, it's usually with the weather getting better, people start getting into more accidents, and so I work in insurance. So it's a busy time. And so here's what I'm doing to prepare for that. So the first thing is I recorded a ton of Writing Tip of the Day episodes. In fact, I'm through the end of March as we speak. So I have all the episodes recorded through the end of March. I'm going to have another sit down later this week, and I'm going to record all the episodes through the end of April. And by the time my class starts on January 22nd, I will have recorded all of the episodes of Writing Tip of the Day, locked and loaded, ready to go, uploaded and scheduled through the end of May. So that's pretty cool if you really think about it, because I don't have to worry about it. It's just, it just turns on to autopilot. Writer's Journey, there's not a whole lot I can do because that's something I do every week. So I'm not terribly worried about that. Author Level Up, I'm going to try to have everything recorded through about the end of March. I probably won't get through the end of April, but Author Level Up is the critical one, because if I miss there, it just sends everything into a spiral. So I've committed to not missing any weeks of Author Level Up. So as I record this, I actually just finished shooting 3 videos that it's going to get me through. I think it's going to get me through the end of January, and then I'll probably have another sit down, another shoot sometime next week, and then I'm just going to keep going until I can get as far out as I possibly can, so that way when I get into March, I don't have to worry about any videos. I don't have to worry about anything if the going gets so rough that I can't record videos. So I'm doing that, and then I'm going to continue to try to work on this book, Cold Hard Magic. If I can get that done, hopefully that will give me some momentum and allow me to work on some other projects throughout the semester. So, it just requires, I think, my situation is unique because I do so much, but I think you could apply this to any writing career, right? So what is it that everybody has their busy seasons? I mean, if you look at your calendar, when are you historically the busiest? If you look at a project and you want to write a novel in 4 months, for example, out of those 4 months, which month is going to be the month that's going to be the most challenging, and how do you prepare for that? I think that's one of the secrets to having a long-term career and doing this for as long as I've been doing it, is that I've always been able to look forward and figure out, okay, what are the trouble times, and then how do I prepare for those today, right? I think that's ultimately really, really important, which leads me to my next topic, which is my contingency planning. So I'm somewhat of an oddball, and I blame this on my insurance background. So one of the things that I'm always doing is I'm always thinking about contingencies, and I'm always thinking about I don't want to say disasters in the sense of the word, but just thinking about all the different things that can happen in a writing career that can potentially destroy it. Like, I'm always thinking about that. And it's not because I'm paranoid. It's just because I prefer to be prepared. So when I was growing up, I volunteered a lot with the American Red Cross. And one of the things that they often teach you is how to be prepared. And so one of the things that I did in my service with the Red Cross was that I volunteered with the Youth Corps. And so one of the things that we were always teaching elementary and middle school students was, how do you be prepared? What happens if someone has a medical emergency? So we would put together these little backpacks, and in the backpacks we would put first aid kits and Band-Aids and gauze, and we would teach the kids how to use the backpacks. And so we always just focused on disaster preparation, and that was never lost on me. That's something that I carried with me into almost every area of my life. So I carried it into home ownership. I carried it into my job, and I've carried it into writing as well. And it's how do you think about disasters? And because I work in insurance is the business of protecting people and protecting their assets, protecting their futures. This is just hardwired into my brain. It's just how I'm built. And so every year, usually in January, I sit down and I look at all of the potential disasters that could happen to me or my writing business in any given year. And then what I do is I develop what I call a contingency. So if this thing were to happen, what do I do? Step 1. Step 2, step 3, and it's very vague, it's very generic. But the reason I do this is because I find that the mental exercise is very, very helpful. Right? So what do I do? What do I do if my house burns down? What do I do if I get diagnosed with cancer? And what if that cancer is terminal? What if it's not terminal? What do I do if I'm at the coffee shop and I'm just writing, minding my own business, and I get punched in the face and somebody steals my laptop? True story, that happens. What happens if I'm driving home from the coffee shop and I've got my backpack with my laptop in it in the back seat or the trunk of my car, and I get rear-ended and it destroys my laptop? What do I do if I wake up one morning and my laptop no longer turns on? What do I do if I wake up one day and I've lost all of my data and all of the books that I've written are gone? What do I do if I wake up one day and my computer is the victim of a ransom attack? What do I do if I wake up one day and my computer, there's some sort of cyber attack and all of my readers' data is exposed? I just go on and I go on and I go on. And some people are probably like, oh my God, this guy is crazy. But the reason I do it is, like I said, it's not because I'm paranoid. It's so that I can at least have some way to be prepared. And so, who are the attorneys that I'm going to call if I get into a legal problem? What happens if, I've got some sort of medical issue that I need to deal with? And the reason I do all of this is because I want to have a long-term writing career, and understanding what all of the different things out there are that can stop me from having a long-term writing career, I think is helpful to understand. It's just helpful to understand what the threats are, right? And some of and as I was updating the contingency plan, some of the threats that I found myself adding to the list were threats that didn't exist last year. Well, maybe they did, but they weren't necessarily a problem. And one of those threats, I think, and this is, I think, very real for any writer that is writing right now, is the threat of cancel culture, right? So what happens if you say something that ticks someone off, and then they send a mob of people with pitchforks after you and they try to end your career, or, they give you a bunch of 1-star reviews on Amazon? I don't know that anybody can truly avoid that exposure. Like, that exposure exists for everybody. So the question is, what do you do when that sort of thing happens? What is your crisis response? And so I focused on, okay, worst case scenario, what happens if I write something or if I say something that somebody perceives the wrong way, or somebody just starts trying to antagonize me or bully me or whatever that might look like? How am I going to respond? How am I going to handle it? Cancel culture was one thing I found adding to my contingency plan that wasn't really a huge threat, even 2 to 3 years ago, but it just seems like it's just getting worse, particularly in the publishing community. And I'm not going to comment on some of the events that are going on right now, but for those of you listening, the romance community, Romance Writers Association, you guys know what's going on with that. That's a terrible situation to find yourself in, whether you're a writer or whether you're an organization. And so how do you prepare for something like that? Another thing that I found myself thinking about quite a bit is cyber cyber attacks. Not so much cyber attacks on me, but cyber attacks on vendors that I work with. So, for example, if you think about Scrivener, I use Scrivener iOS and I use Scrivener for Mac. Great software, it works perfectly, but it relies on Dropbox in order to sync your files back and forth, right? What if something were to happen to Dropbox? What if Dropbox were hacked or experienced some sort of cyber attack, and then I lost all my data overnight, or I wasn't able to get access to it for a certain amount of days, right? How do I handle that? How am I backing up my work so that I never lose access to my data? I don't know that was as much of a problem a few years ago as it is now. It just feels like the threat of cyber attacks is increasing, and I don't know that the writing community is going to be 100% immune to it. And so it also got me thinking a little bit about what happens if the different vendors that we use as writers start going out of business. So if the economy it's at some point going to hit a recession, but if we hit a global recession or a depression, all the businesses that we do business with to run our writing business today, some of them aren't going to be around. Some of them are going to fold. Some of them are going to change. Some of them are going to get acquired, right? And so you want to think about that, right? If the email marketing service that you use today, what if they went away tomorrow? What would you do? And again, like I said, I know it maybe sounds a little bit paranoid, but it's one day out of every year where I really take the time to really think about all the different things that have changed among the publishing landscape and how I can be prepared for that. And so that's something I would encourage you to do if you're a writer, is to think about all the different things that can happen in your writing business that would basically put you out of commission. And I think you have 3 goals. The first goal is to make sure that you take care of yourself, right? The second goal is to make sure that your business continues while you're taking care of yourself, that it continues to earn you money. And then the third is to make sure that your intellectual property, your copyrights, are always in a position to make you money. You want to make sure that those never end up off the market. So how do you do all of that? And I think a contingency plan can help you with that. So anyway, that's my topic for the week. I know it's boring. It's not sexy. I know that a lot of people are probably not going to listen to this and probably just going to be like, this isn't important. But I do think that it's absolutely critical into having a long-term career. And we talk all the time about how we need to treat the craft or the business of writing like a business. Businesses do contingency planning. I don't understand why writers can't. So that's all I got for you this week. I hope that you all enjoy the new timestamp feature. I hope that you find it useful. And yeah, I'll holler at you next time. Thanks for joining me this week. If you enjoyed this episode, you'll enjoy my backlist episodes at michaelaran.com/podcast. For your free starter library of my favorite novels, join my fan club by visiting michaelaran.com/fanclub. If you're a writer and want to connect with me further, check out my YouTube channel, Author Level Up, for helpful writing advice at authorlevelup.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back next week.